Formula Bwoah is a free-to-play cross-platform between Steam, iOS and Android racing game that sees you pitted up against 9 other potentially human players or AI bots filling up the grid across a variety of different tracks that have a forward and reverse racing angle. The idea behind this is to give a free-to-play style of almost something like Circuit Superstars or Mini Racing Online or something like that, but with a helicopter chase perspective. So you're constantly going away or to the camera, and you need to flip your steering back and forth to adjust for that. I love that style of gaming. I absolutely love Circuit Superstars and tons of games from the 90s that did this type of racing style, like Mashed for example, but there's only one camera angle, and it's the first of loads and loads of compromises that this game has because it's free to play and monetizing itself through in-game ads and in-game purchases rather than being a buy me and have a proper experience. As someone that doesn't mobile game at all, this just smacks me in the face as something that's really frustrating and annoying, and perhaps I'm the wrong audience for this game. But I'm going to still review it from my racing chops perspective, as much as they are not very fast chops, and hopefully it's been informative. So what does free to play mean in Formula Bwoah? So the first thing is this that I mentioned is this camera angle. There's only one, and it's very low to the ground. And the reason why I think that it's like this is not necessarily because it gives you the best view of racing, because it absolutely doesn't. You hide behind furniture, but that furniture of the track are billboards for running real world ads. So you've constantly got the big blue of IKEA or the red of Coca-Cola splattered in your face as you go. Amazon's in there as well. All of those mobile ads placed around the track. Now, like a real world racing track, there's billboards everywhere there, and the camera does linger on them, or it's positioned in a way so that the cars kind of meander around the adverts as it goes, because like Formula 1, it is the highest speed ad going, isn't it? But it makes for a really compromised racing experience, because sometimes you're diving and driving behind an ad, or the camera is so low that you can't tell whether you're on the track or on a curb or not. And yeah, there's some loud audio that can tell you that you're on a curb, but because the handling of this game is quite floaty, it makes it very difficult to course correct things in a nice and simple way, and it got on my nerves the longer that I played it, even though I have no issue with a helicopter chase camera angle just in general. The other thing around free to play in this game is that your car starts off with a certain base level, and it's a card based upgrade system. There are different cards relating to members of your crew. So you've got like a tyre person, a pit lane person, an engine person that deals with like slipstreaming, for example, an ERS system for a boost. So what these people have are stats that you can upgrade through, firstly, collecting cards that you get through a treasure chest at the end of each race that you run. And these are randomly generated, and they'll kind of add up to a certain thing. So you might need to get 10 or 20 or 50 of a certain person's card. Then when they hit that, you can then pay through coins that you earn, again through treasure chests and at the end of each race, to then upgrade the level of that person and keep going. Now, cards are dished out actually quite regularly and fairly, and so your character will, at least early on in the game, be able to upgrade quite quickly, depending on whether they're a standard person or a rare person, because rare persons don't come up so often. But the rare person, when they upgrade and level up, provide a bigger boost of an upgrade for the ERS, the tyre life, the slipstreaming effect, reliability, which I didn't see come up at all in any of my games, which is very confusing. They all kind of have their own little strengths that they upgrade the car on, which means that you're never truly racing skill versus skill, because when you're then brought into a race, everyone's car is slightly different, and that's kind of fine because you can still make the difference on track to a point, and I'll get to that in a second. But yeah, it means that you're going to be matched up against people that potentially have a pit stop that's always going to be a couple of seconds faster than you, or they've got more ERS or better tyre life, which gives them more strategy options in theory. So when you start out new, you're going to be facing an uphill battle of running around potentially at the back through no fault of your own, even if you're better. And sometimes that works out quite nicely, because when you beat people that have got a better card ranking score than you get extra satisfaction. It just felt a little bit meh to me whenever you moved, like, it doesn't do a good job of matching you with people who are vaguely in the same ballpark as you. Sometimes I'd be well overpowered to people, sometimes I'd be ridiculously underpowered, and maybe that's just because of the amount of people that were playing online at that time. So, you can, of course, with in-app purchases, buy more cards, buy more coins. I was finding that I wasn't getting enough coins to upgrade some of my characters compared to what I was in terms of the cards reaching an upgrade. So that's where the in-app purchases come in, so that you can accelerate some of that. But you kind of want to focus on those rare characters that you unlock, because every time they level up, they're leveling up at twice the speed, potentially, of someone else who is leveling up slower, but they cost slightly more than twice the coins to pay to level up. So I was like, well, then why would I? This feels unbalanced. And unbalanced then translates across to the other things in the game. Handling of these cars, they feel like a cross between a motorcycle and a speedboat, because they yaw when they go round corners, and it looks quite cute in the graphics department, but it makes no sense when it comes to racing, because you don't feel connected to the road at all. There is no difference between whether you're on a curb or on a track. When you get onto the grass, you just instantly slow down to a crawl, which is fine, fair enough. But there's no grip to whatever it is that you're doing. It's just you slightly scrub a little bit more speed off if you're on medium and hard, and your acceleration is reduced when you're on medium and hard tyres versus soft. But it's almost entirely negated on almost every single track that you shouldn't really run soft tyres on, at least early on in the game, because soft tyres only last 2 laps, mediums only last 3, and hards only last 4, and every online race is 8 laps. The exception to this is the oval track, because you can get round that on mediums and softs once you've upgraded things without having to have a pit stop, because it's such a short track. And so then suddenly strategy is right out of the window. Now, play it for 4 or 5 hours, you might have got enough cards to upgrade your tyre life so that you can start to play with maybe getting through on a 1 stop on a medium or a 2 stop on a soft. But because the tyres aren't really bothered about how well you drive, it's about how far you travel. It still ends up quite often that just going hard tyres is the best way. So the whole strategy of how you race kind of falls apart. And again, in-app purchases, you can improve your stuff as you go. No one seems to be bothering. So it's just everyone going around on hard tyres once they've worked it out for a couple of goes. Whilst the AI show that it's clearly not the fastest way to go round on softs and stopping loads and loads of times, because they're easily to beat. The AI themselves are extremely aggressive. They will fill out most of the grid, because the most I've had in a race so far is 4 humans. And every time that would happen, pretty much the game would fall over. The other thing that this game does is that even though there are 12 tracks in theory, it sticks out the same 4 over and over again. So I've played Bahrain about 80 to 85% of the time that I've played Formula Bwoah. Occasionally I'll get the oval. Once or twice I've had Austria, and once or twice I've had the British Grand Prix when I got to Series 2 and unlocked the next 6 tracks. But the game just constantly defaults back to Bahrain over and over again. There's tracks I've not even played after several hours, and because you can't go in and choose a track, you just kind of go, oh, it's Bahrain again, and just kind of meh your way through it. And yes, there's a forward and reverse, but again, it has its preferences over what one it gives you. And so, yeah, it's not 12 tracks, it's 6 tracks of forward and reverse, but it still only gives you the same 4 out of those 12 constantly anyway. So, meh. It's also worth noting that this game is full of bugs, and whilst early access is definitely, like, always comes with that caveat, some of these things are quite annoying. And some of them are supposedly fixed, but I'm still finding them today. So it was stuff like when I go into the pits, if you run consecutive races in the game, it doesn't quite align up what it thinks your tyre option is. So I'd think that I'd chosen hard, but actually it would put on soft tyres, even though it's displaying that I should be going on to hard. That ruined some races for me. When you move between sessions, sometimes it's got loading one track and another track appears. I had quite a few races where I wouldn't actually be on the grid and be frozen in the pit lane. There were times where I would warp not on the track and wouldn't be able to get onto the track, and the respawn didn't work. When you run out of tyres, it slows you down slightly, but actually it's faster sometimes to just conk out with tyres than come into the pits. ERS sometimes wouldn't recharge. Sometimes the changing in weather would cause a little bit of problems as well, where like the graphics would get stuck in the rain version rather than the sunny version, and the AI doesn't quite know whether it should be pitting for wets or dries and then get confused. Then the AI sometimes doesn't actually match what's going on track, so you'll be slowed down by being on dry tyres on a wet track, but the AI won't. It's just loads and loads and loads of things that you think, some of this perhaps should have been done before it went into early access, and I do question if it's gone into early access a little bit too early, potentially, for my liking. The last thing I wanted to mention is that there's also a total autoplay mode as well, which is fine, but completely then takes away any of the skill that's involved in actually getting to the front in Formula Bwoah, and it did kind of make me go, how much of this racing experience am I just playing against other people on autoplay? And then I realised autoplay was on by default. So I'd been auto racing and then kind of overtaking and overdriving the auto racing. But I wondered why it was automatically dragging me into the pit sometimes, and I realised that was the problem. So I was just as guilty of it as everyone else. Turned it off, didn't really change much of my experience at all, except for coming in and out of the pits. But then it kind of made me feel even more colder about the game to what I was actually playing. So yeah, I'm not a fan of this at all. Primarily because it's a free-to-play game that feels totally compromised as a result. I would just rather pay £10 for something that would give me this, that I could keep and have local multiplayer and offline mode where I could choose the tracks that I wanted to race and actually see some of them. AI bots that maybe didn't just charge into me and ram me off the road and felt a little bit more like they were racing me properly. Although, to be fair, the AI is the least of Formula Bwoah's worries, and it's actually not too badly implemented. But yeah, I'm not sure about this one, unfortunately, and I just don't think I'm the right audience for it. But if you don't mind free-to-play compromises, it's free. You can dive in and watch some ads whilst you race around the track, and you might get a good few hours out of it. I played this for just over 2.5 hours. I feel like I've really had my fill with it already, and I don't think I'll be coming back personally. But yeah, that's my thoughts. Formula Bwoah, out now.
Higher Plane Games is part of the Higher Plane Network, a completely independent media outlet supported by people like you. The goal is to create the best possible content that cultivates a richer indie scene for games as well as music and entertainment. To find out more and to get involved, visit patreon.com/higherplane-network. Your support makes all the difference, and in return you'll gain access to bonus content and downloads. Thank you for watching.